Well, hi everybody, and greetings from Northern Michigan. This is Bob the Science Guy. Today I'd like to talk about conspiracy theories, and we're going to bring on a video from Dr. Todd Grande. He's going to have a discussion about the popular yet easily disproven conspiracy theories that seem to be making the rounds on social media and YouTube.
Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, why don't conspiracy theories make sense? So why are they illogical? Now, I received a lot of questions from a video I posted recently about the flat earth conspiracy theory, and one of the themes really revolved around this question. Is there some way to look at conspiracy theories, kind of all of them grouped together, and find some commonality that can be debunked? Some way to more or less disprove all of these theories without getting specific into each conspiracy theory. So I'm really looking at this from the perspective of personality theory and how that can explain why conspiracies, like the ones we see in conspiracy theories, really couldn't hold up. So to help answer this question, I had a few different references, including Grimes and colleagues 2016 and Douglas and colleagues 2017. I'll put the references for those articles in the description for this video. So first, what are some of the conspiracy theories? Well, I don't know how many there are. I can only imagine that when you include all the variations, there are probably thousands. But I know there are certainly scores of fairly popular conspiracy theories. So some of the ones that stood out as I researched this topic were that vaccinations are really harmful, or they don't work, or they're there to control the population. That's one conspiracy theory. We see global warming is another one, chemtrails, the flat earth conspiracy theory I talked about before, this conspiracy theory that says that there was no moon landing, so that in 1969 Apollo 11, that really didn't happen, that was staged on some sort of Hollywood set or something like that. We see the Area 51 conspiracy theory. Again, there's probably several theories around Area 51. Like the government has taken alien technology to make military-grade weapons. And we also see theories like the cure for cancer is being suppressed, so that the government really has access to a cure for cancer, but they're just not sharing it with the population. And then one of my favorites, and I say favorites because this one was a little difficult to counter because it's really so odd and eccentric, is that elite lizards, so these are shape-shifting lizard humanoid aliens, have invaded the world, and because they're shape-shifting they can appear to be people, and they've taken certain positions, like positions in the government, with big banks, big pharmaceutical, all that. I think another area I find particularly interesting about the elite lizard theory, conspiracy theory, is that the lizards are also in Hollywood. So it's not just really about world domination with the lizard humanoids, it's about entertainment and maybe a little bit of narcissism, I don't know. But that's one of the more interesting theories. So as you can see, that's probably my favorite one, but a lot of these theories are really hinging on the same concepts, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But first, it's important to note here that not all conspiracy theories have been wrong. For example, there was this conspiracy theory that the CIA tested LSD on Americans. That turned out to be true. We also see these theories that the government was monitoring communications globally, like cell phone communications. Well, that turned out to be true as well. So we can't just say that all conspiracy theories are false. Again, some have been true. But what I'm really talking about here are the kind of popular conspiracy theories that have already been solidly disproven. So again, I'm trying to debunk these conspiracy theories in general, but for any specific conspiracy theory in the short term, that's a little hard to do. So what I'm really talking about here is, in the long run, conspiracies don't work. And I'll talk about why I believe that in a moment. Another important point here is that conspiracy theories are remarkably popular. If you look at just the US population, over 50% of Americans believe in at least one conspiracy theory, And some studies say it could be more than 60% believe in one theory. So we have a large number of people that subscribe to at least one conspiracy theory. Now, I think for somebody to be a conspiracy theorist, though, to define somebody in that way, they really would have to believe in more than that. I mean, usually what we see here with conspiracy theorists is they believe in dozens of these theories. And one could argue that it's all reduced really to one overarching conspiracy, which is a large number of organized evil people conspiring to cause harm. So that could be by hiding the moon landing, that could be by using vaccinations to control people. I don't know really how that would fit in with the lizards. I guess the lizards would be that group of people for the elite lizard theory. But either way, it's really about secrecy. It's really about conspirators coming together. And this is exactly why the statistical argument against conspiracy theories is difficult to maintain. So if we think about this, if we say that all probabilities are independent of all others, which of course we know is true in some situations, but not in others, depends on what probabilities we're referring to. But if we look at something like a coin flip, if you flip a coin 4 times and you get heads each time, what are the chances that you'll get heads when you flip it a 5th time? Well, it's still 50-50 because all those probabilities are independent of the other probabilities. Each coin flip has a 50-50 chance, 50% on heads, 50% on tails. So when we see the statistical argument made against conspiracy theories, people will say, well, what are the chances that all of those conspiracy theories that somebody believes in would be true? Well, the trick is here, these probabilities may be dependent. If somebody believes that the government is conspiring and all these people have come together and they're conspiring to cause evil, then they could all know each other. It could be one large conspiracy. And all of these different specific theories would just be variants, would just be products of this one big conspiracy. So this is really why the statistical argument isn't great unless somebody says, well, these are separate agencies and these conspiracies are actually independent. In that case, the statistical argument would work very well. So let's say that we're looking at conspiracy theories involving NASA, the CIA, and the FBI, and all are independent of one another. And let's just say there's a 10% chance of a conspiracy like this, like the ones I've talked about, coming up in these agencies. I think that's extremely high, but let's just say 10%. Well, for all 3 to happen, if they're independent, there would only be a 1/10% chance that would occur, a very low probability. So again, you have to be careful with the statistical argument, but it can be a good argument in some ways. I'm going to be basing my argument on personality. So with that in mind, really quickly, let's talk about why people believe in conspiracy theories. Well, I think that one reason is personality traits, this tendency to find meaning from randomness and believing that this meaning affects somebody personally. We call this an idea of reference. And I know that the idea of reference is actually a symptom for some mental disorders. That's not really what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a subclinical idea of reference. Just believing that this could happen more often than average. We also see odd beliefs and magical thinking, and again, I know this is a symptom criterion for a mental disorder, but even at a subclinical level, I think these tendencies make somebody vulnerable to believing in conspiracy theories. If we look at the construct of schizotypy, which again, taken to an extreme, would be cluster A personality disorders, that's what we're really talking about here. We're talking about subclinical manifestations in many cases. Now, of course, as I mentioned before in my other video, somebody could believe in conspiracy theories and have no mental disorder or no irregular personality characteristics at all. That's certainly possible. But here I'm really talking about what the tendency would be, what I tend to see with conspiracy theories. Now, other theories show that conspiracy theorists tend to be uncertain, insecure, anxious, feel powerless, and isolated. So believing in the conspiracy theory may help them to take some control because they can now comprehend constructs they didn't understand. So in a sense, they're safer because they're detecting these threats, even though, of course, the threats aren't real. And we also see a sense of belonging is important for conspiracy theorists, usually. We refer to this as collective narcissism. So this is when you're special because you're with a group of other people that believe they're special. And this can compensate for somebody's self-esteem being threatened. So there's a brief explanation on why conspiracy theories are maintained, why people might believe them, but why do they fail? How can I debunk, in general, all long-term conspiracy theories? Well, it's all really about personality. And my fundamental argument here would be that secrecy at the level needed to maintain these conspiracies would be very difficult to maintain. People aren't good at conspiring. That's really the bottom line. And eventually, especially if you involve a lot of people, someone will deliberately or inadvertently reveal the truth. So why might this happen from a personality perspective? Well, consider the big 5 personality traits we call the 5-factor model: openness to experience, extroversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and neuroticism. These traits are normally distributed. So if you have a conspiracy that involves 1,000 people, 2,000 people, you're going to see all different levels of all of these traits and the facets. Each one of these traits has 6 facets. And certain facets of these traits would be more associated with either accidentally or deliberately revealing the truth, so breaking the link of the conspiracy. Again, it only takes one bad link in the chain to undo a conspiracy. So some traits that might be associated with failing to maintain a conspiracy would be high altruism. So this is on the agreeableness traits. This is where somebody wants to do good. Low conscientiousness would be another trait. So this would be when somebody's not careful. You have to be conscientious to maintain something as complex as a conspiracy. We see high neuroticism as a possibility, impulsivity. Somebody has difficulty resisting the temptation to talk. And in a somewhat similar way, being talkative alone could be a problem for maintaining conspiracy. So this would be plotted on extroversion, high extroversion. We also see other characteristics that could make somebody more likely to break up a conspiracy. Being narcissistic, somebody who has fantasies of wealth and power and success. Well, if you give up a conspiracy, if you go to the public and reveal information about some massive conspiracy, certainly that would probably lead to fame and maybe even wealth. How about jealousy? If somebody's narcissistic, they tend to be jealous. You get jealous of your co-conspirators and you go ahead and betray them, right? That could be something that occurs because of narcissism. We also see lack of empathy, so this would be a lack of empathy with the co-conspirators, and an excessive need for admiration. Again, if you blow the lid off of something huge like a major conspiracy, people will admire you. Other possible traits could be high adventurousness. We see that mapped on openness to experience. And also substance use. If somebody's using substances, they're going to be disinhibited and more likely to make a mistake. Now, in one of the studies I referenced earlier, Grimes and colleagues 2016, in this study, the researcher really looked at taking a very low probability that any conspirator would make a mistake. So this was a really conservative estimate in favor of the conspiracy staying together. And the paper specifically looked at the moon landing, global warming, vaccinations, and suppression of the cure for cancer. And what this study found is that with each one of these independently, the best case scenario would be that the gig would be up in less than 4 years, that the conspiracy would be blown wide open and people would discover what's going on. The truth would be revealed. So of course, if you're talking about multiple conspiracies, this would make it more unlikely that we see a conspiracy be successful in the long run. So this is, I think, a pretty good argument that large conspiracies are just difficult to maintain, and this is why these theories don't make sense. But when we get back to that last conspiracy theory I mentioned in that initial list, the reptile humanoids, again, this is my favorite one. My theory about why conspiracy theories are illogical kind of falls apart a little bit. We don't know the 5-factor model profiles of reptile humanoid aliens. They may not be prone to errors. They may be better at keeping secrets than we see with human beings, kind of a reptile mafia. So I think for most conspiracy theories, though, they fail because there's too many conspirators that would have to be involved, all of whom introduce a risk to failure, so long-term success is unlikely. Again, with the reptile humanoids, this may not be the case. I'm really not sure how to make a good argument against that, just based on personality. You really have to start using some other areas of science to counter that one effectively. So I guess you could say my theory of personality and how it counters conspiracy theories would work for most conspiracy theories, but maybe not all. I hope you found this description of conspiracy theories and personality theory to be interesting. Thanks for watching.
This rabbit hole almost too deep for me. Feel my brain getting real sore.